Now we want to look in more detail at these two challenges of photosynthesis. And the first one is water loss. So now to think about this, what we need to do is think a little bit about the anatomy of a leaf. And so we're going to do a drawing right here. So I'm making this double line, and this is going to represent the outer layer of leaf cells. Notice I'm leaving some little empty spaces here as we go on the bottom. Okay, so this represents the epidermis of the plant. This is the epidermal cells. And these are living cells. We can put some little nuclei in there to remind us that these are living cells. And they're going to be on the top and the bottom of the leaf. And one of the things that these epidermal cells do is they secrete wax. Now, a little review here. I'm going to wait a second to let you think about this. Wax, as a molecule, is that hydrophobic or hydrophilic? Think for a second. Wax, hydrophobic or hydrophilic? So it's definitely hydrophobic, right? So what that means is because these cells are waxy, they are a barrier to water escaping through the epidermis of the leaf. However, there are these little openings down here at the bottom, and these are called stomata. Stoma is Latin for mouth, and we'll see a microscope picture of these in just a second. You'll see that they do actually look like little mouths. And these are openings where gas can move in and out. Now, we got to think about what's inside the leaf here too, and I'm going to do this very simply right now. There are cells inside the leaf, and this is where most of the photosynthesis is occurring. These cells inside the leaf are called mesophyll cells. And these mesophyll cells are surrounded by actually an air space. So there is airspace inside the leaf there. Now, when you think about what has to happen during photosynthesis, there does have to be some gas exchange. The carbon dioxide that is produced, the oxygen that's produced during photosynthesis has to be able to escape. And then, of course, new carbon dioxide needs to come in to be fixed for sugar production. Okay, now all that's well and good, except that when there is a lot of light shining on this leaf, all of these mesophyll cells in here are very wet. And the water is going to evaporate off the surface of these cells and be lost to first the airspace in the leaf and then ultimately to the environment. And that's we could refer to that as vaporization, but it's probably going to be a little better for us to call that transpiration. It's that loss of water to the environment off the surface of those mesophyll cells. So when the sun is shining, the stomata are open to allow some gas exchange, but water is going to be lost as part of that. Now we can look at some microscope pictures of this as well. You can see here's the epidermal layer up here on the top and the bottom of the leaf. We're looking at a cross section of a leaf. Here's a bunch of mesophyll cells in the central area here, and you can see these air spaces in and around these leaves. Now down here at the bottom, this is one of the stomata where there can be gas exchange. Now if we were to fly over the surface of the leaf and look at that, this is what we would see. There's these two cells called guard cells. There's actually two of them, one here and one here. And we'll think about this in a later lecture too, but these stomata are actually able to open and close to seal up that hole. All right, so water loss is one of the first challenges of photosynthesis. Now, I mentioned earlier the term C3 photosynthesis, which is what most plants do. And so this is a nice way to think about it. In this little vial here is 1 gram of dried plant material, basically cellulose. And this is, I think, some dried basil or something from my kitchen. I've had it for a long time, but there's 1 gram of that stuff in there. to make that 1 gram of cellulose, in other words, to fix enough carbon to make 1 gram of cellulose, a C3 plant loses 400 milliliters of water. So 400 milliliters of water pass through the plant and then out through the leaves to make that 1 gram of cellulose, or basically to fix 1 gram of carbon. So that's a lot of water loss. Think about, even a small plant, is losing a lot of water, but think about a big tree. Most of the bulk of that tree is cellulose. And so there's just huge amounts of water, which had to be taken up by the plant through the soil, through the roots, then brought up to the leaves, and then is lost to the environment as part of photosynthesis. Now there is a pretty straightforward solution to water loss, which is to take those stomata and close them, to close up those little openings. But that actually is also problematic. And so before we go on to the next video segment, there's a question for you to think about what would the effect be of closing the stomata.